I'm typing this out on my phone, so formatting might be a bit messy. So, I, female 29, feel like I'm losing my mind over what happened with my stepdaughter's photos, and I honestly don't know if I'm the crazy one here. My husband's family is acting like I committed some horrible crime, and I need to know if I'm actually the asshole. Am I the idiot for moving my stepdaughter's hidden photos of her dead mom? Okay, so some background. I married my husband David, male, 35, about 8 months ago. He has a daughter, Emma, female, 16, from his first marriage. His first wife died in a car accident when Emma was 12, which is obviously devastating, and I've tried to be really understanding about the grief stuff. Like, I get it, losing your mom at that age has to mess you up. But here's the thing. Emma has this weird obsession with photos of her mom. And I don't mean like having a few nice pictures in her room or whatever. I mean, she's constantly printing new copies of the same photos over and over again. Like, she'll print the same picture in 4x6, then 5x7, then 8x10, like she's trying to find the perfect size or something. It's honestly kind of unsettling, but my husband just says she's processing her grief whenever I bring it up. So anyway, yesterday I was deep cleaning the laundry room because there's been this gross, musty smell for weeks that I couldn't figure out. David's not exactly the cleaning type. He's one of those guys who thinks wiping down the counter counts as deep cleaning, haha. So I figured I'd just tackle it myself. When I moved the washing machine to really scrub behind it, I found this photo of his first wife taped to the wall in some cheap plastic frame. I was like, what the hell? Why is there a random photo of a dead woman hiding behind my washing machine? It felt really creepy and weird. But then I realized, if Emma hid one photo there, she probably hid him other places too. So I went on this systematic hunt through the entire house, and guys, I found photos everywhere, rolled up inside empty toilet paper tubes in the bathroom closets, folded inside some library book about grief that was just sitting on the living room shelf, a whole shoebox full of duplicate prints stashed behind some paint cans in the garage. There were probably like 30-40 photos total, all of the same woman, just scattered around my house in the weirdest hiding spots. It was honestly making me feel crazy and paranoid, which I know sounds dramatic, but you have to understand, I already feel like an outsider in this family sometime. Finding out that Emma has basically turned our entire house into some kind of shrine without telling anyone just made it so much worse. I've always been the type of person who organizes stuff when I'm anxious, so I gathered all the photos and put them in a neat stack in my bedroom closet. Not thrown away, not destroyed, just organized in one spot instead of scattered around like some weird scavenger hunt. When Emma got home from school, she immediately went to check whatever spots she visits every day. When she realized the photos were gone, she came storming downstairs screaming at me, like full-on meltdown, screaming about how I'm trying to steal her mother's memory and erase her from the family. I tried to explain that I just moved them to one place, that they're all still safe, but she was totally hysterical. Then David came running and immediately took her side without even asking for my side of the story. He'd obviously heard enough of Emma's screaming to know I'd done something to the photos. He basically said I should have left them alone because she's been through so much. Maybe because I live here too, and finding random photos of your dead wife hidden around the house is weird. But apparently, I'm the villain for not wanting to stumble across hidden shrine photos while I'm trying to clean my own home. I called my sister-in-law afterwards to see if I was totally off base here. She got all defensive and said I need to be more patient because grief doesn't follow rules and some kids need to feel their mother's presence everywhere to heal. But honestly, she sounded nervous as hell and kept changing the subject whenever I asked specific questions about Emma's actions. The whole thing is just, I don't know. I feel uncomfortable in my own house. David acts like I should just accept whatever Emma does because she's grieving. But it's been 4 years since her mom died. At some point, don't we need to talk about healthy boundaries? Or am I just being a selfish stepmom who doesn't understand grief? I mean, I tried really hard to be understanding. I've never tried to replace her mom or anything like that. I don't push for mother-daughter bonding time. I mostly just stay out of her way and let David handle the parenting stuff. But finding secret photos hidden around my house crossed a line for me, especially when no one bothered to tell me this was happening. Now Emma won't talk to me and David is acting like I committed some unforgivable sin. His family keeps texting me about how insensitive I am and how I need to apologize immediately. But honestly, I don't think wanting to know what's hidden in my own home makes me a monster. So, am I the idiot for moving the photos? Should I have just left them scattered around the house forever? I genuinely don't know if I'm being reasonable or if grief really does mean anything goes. Edit 1. Since people are asking, yes, the photos are completely fine. I didn't damage them or anything. They're in a neat stack in my closet and Emma can have them back anytime. I just didn't want them randomly hidden around the house anymore. Edit 2. To those saying I should have talked to David first, I tried that months ago when I noticed Emma's photo printing obsession, and he just brushed it off. He has this pattern of avoiding problems until they go away on their own, so honestly, I didn't think he'd take it seriously. Edit 3. A few people asked about the smell in the laundry room. Turns out it was from water damage behind the washing machine. Probably been there for months. The photo wasn't causing the smell, just happened to be taped there. Still weird though. Now for the first update. Well, it happened. I found out exactly where all that photo printing money was coming from, and honestly, I wish I could go back to not knowing any of this. So, it's been like 2 weeks since the whole photo thing, and Emma's still basically giving me the silent treatment. Which honestly, fine, whatever. At least I can clean my house without finding random pictures taped to things. David keeps doing his usual thing where he acts like if we all just ignore the problem long enough, it'll magically fix itself. But anyway, yesterday I was paying our monthly bills online, because apparently I'm the only functioning adult in this house who remembers we have a mortgage, and I see these charges on my credit card that made no sense, like $847 total to something called Print Pro Services and Photomax Express spread out over the past 3 months. I'm looking at this thinking someone definitely stole my card number, because I sure as hell didn't spend almost $900 on printing anything. So I called David at work immediately, and I'm like, hey, did you use my card for some photo stuff? And he gets all confused, like, what photo stuff? So I read him the charges, and he's doing that thing where he's clearly scrambling to think of an explanation and tells me maybe someone stole my card number and I should call the bank, which honestly just made me more suspicious because David's a terrible liar. Like, he literally cannot keep a straight face when he's bullshitting someone. So I'm like, okay, fine, I'll call them right now, and I put him on speaker while I dial the credit card company. The customer service lady was super helpful, actually, and she told me all of these charges came from our home IP address using saved payment information on a device. And I'm just sitting there with my mouth open while David's still on the phone, and I can literally hear him breathing getting faster. That's when I remembered. About 3 months ago, Emma asked to borrow my laptop to finish some school project because her computer was being slow. And like an idiot, I just left her alone with it for like 3 hours. So I'm back on the phone with David and I'm like, your daughter has been stealing from me, and he goes quiet for like 30 seconds and then tells me maybe she used it a few times, but he thought it was just small amounts. Small amounts. Almost $900 is small amounts apparently. But here's where it gets really messed up. Emma must have heard us arguing from upstairs because we were definitely not being quiet about this. She comes stomping down and immediately starts screaming at me about how I'm trying to control the family money and erase her mother's memory and all this manipulative crap she always pulls. And David just takes her side, again. He tells me we make good money and a few $100s isn't worth this fight, and maybe we should have talked about this privately first. I swear to God, I wanted to throw my laptop at both of them. Like I'm the bad guy for not wanting my stepdaughter to literally steal my money for months to feed her creepy photo obsession. But that's not even the worst part of this whole mess. After they both ganged up on me, I was feeling totally crazy and alone, so I called David's sister later that night. I figured she'd at least be reasonable about the whole thing, since she seemed kind of uncomfortable when I talked to her before about Emma's actions. At first, she's doing her usual, oh well, grief affects everyone differently routine, but I could tell she kept sighing and saying she was busy and trying to end the call. So finally I asked her if this level of photo obsession was actually normal for a grieving teenager. And she just broke down, started crying and saying how sorry she was and how she couldn't keep lying anymore. Apparently her own husband has been threatening to cut off Emma's contact with their kids because of her manipulative actions, and she couldn't handle the pressure anymore. Here's the part that literally made me throw up when she told me. David's first wife didn't die in a car accident. She killed herself after she found out David was having an affair with some woman from his work. Emma doesn't know the real reason her mom died. David's been lying to everyone. his daughter, me, probably half the family, for 4 years about what actually happened. His sister said their parents cut them off financially after it happened because they blamed David for their daughter's death, which explains why he's been so weird about money and why Emma gets away with everything. He's drowning in guilt and just lets her do whatever she wants because he thinks he owes her. I honestly don't even know how to process this. My husband has been lying to me about something this huge for our entire relationship. Every time he talked about the accident and how sudden it was, every time he made me feel bad for not understanding Emma's grief better, the whole time he knew why she was really dead and he just lied. And Emma's whole photo thing makes so much more sense now, but also so much worse. Like she's desperately trying to hold on to this perfect memory of her mom while having no idea that her dad is literally the reason her mom is gone. I confronted David about it this morning, and he just shut down completely, like wouldn't even deny it, just said his sister had no right to tell me, and I don't understand how hard the situation is. Then he left for work early and hasn't answered any of my texts. I feel like my entire marriage is built on lies. I don't know how to look at either of them the same way. I definitely don't know how to pretend everything is normal when Emma comes home from school today. What the hell am I supposed to do with this information? Like, do I tell Emma the truth? Do I just pack my stuff and leave? I can't even figure out if I'm more angry about the money or the lying or just everything. This whole family is so much more messed up than I ever realized, and I'm starting to think I made a huge mistake getting involved with any of them. Edit 1. Since people keep asking, no, I haven't confronted Emma about the credit card yet because finding out about her mom's suicide kind of made everything else feel less important. 2. To those saying I should contact a lawyer about the money, honestly, $847 is the least of my problems right now. But yeah, I'm definitely changing all my passwords and removing my card info from everything. Now for the second update. Things got so much worse since my last post, and honestly, I don't even know where to start with all this. So a lot of you were telling me to just leave after I found out about the suicide and David's lies, and honestly, I was pretty much ready to pack my stuff and get out of there. But then we had this wedding reception thing planned that we'd been putting off since our courthouse wedding 8 months ago, and I felt like I couldn't just cancel everything without looking completely insane to his family. I was still reeling from finding out my entire marriage was built on lies, and I guess I thought if I could just get through one normal family event, maybe I could figure out whether our relationship was salvageable or if I needed to plan my exit strategy. Spoiler alert, that was a terrible decision. So the reception was supposed to be this small backyard thing with maybe 30 people. Nothing fancy, just trying to celebrate with family since we never really had a proper wedding celebration. David's been acting weird and guilty since his sister told me the truth, but he keeps insisting we should just move forward and not let the past ruin our future, which is rich coming from someone who's been lying for our entire relationship, but whatever. Emma had been staying at her boyfriend's house for like a week after our whole credit card blow-up. David made her get a part-time job to pay back the money, but of course didn't make her face any real consequences, which honestly was kind of a relief because the house felt calmer without her there. David just told me she could stay there as long as Tyler's parents were okay with it, typical of him to avoid dealing with the actual problem. But she shows up to the reception wearing this white sundress, not like wedding white, but definitely white enough that people were doing double takes and whispering. I should have known right then that something was going to happen, but I was already stressed about hosting and trying to act normal around David's family, when I now know they've all been lying to me too. She spent the entire cocktail hour making these little comments to people about how some people move on too quickly and how families change fast. Like loud enough for me to hear, but quiet enough that she could play innocent if anyone called her out. David either didn't notice or was pretending not to notice, because he kept doing that thing where he just focuses really hard on whatever conversation he's having and ignores everything else. But the real mess happened during the toasts. My sister was saying something sweet about new beginnings, and Emma just stands up and walks over to grab the microphone. Right in the middle of my sister's speech, she started talking about how happy she was to share our special family day and how she had exciting news. Then she announced that she and her boyfriend were engaged and planning a wedding for next year. The boyfriend, let's call him Tyler, looked shocked and confused. He's just sitting there with his mouth open while Emma kept talking about how her mother would be proud to see her finding love and starting a family. It was so obviously fake and attention-grabby, but what was I supposed to do? Call her out in front of everyone at my own reception? So I just had to stand there smiling while half the guests were trying to figure out whether to congratulate me or her, and the whole party just got completely derailed. Tyler barely said anything for the rest of the night and kept looking at Emma with confusion. A couple of David's aunts came up to me later asking if the engagement was real because it seemed very sudden, and they were concerned about Emma making big decisions so young. David just kept shrugging at me like there was nothing he could do every time I looked at him. Like this was just normal stepdaughter actions that I needed to accept. The whole thing was a disaster, and by the end of the night I was so angry I could barely speak. But I figured, okay, she got her attention. Maybe now we can all move on and I can figure out my marriage without more chaos. Yeah, right. So about 3 weeks later, Emma shows up at the house with this stack of save the dates. They're actually pretty nice. Clearly her boyfriend's family has money because these are fancy printed cardstock things. I guess after the initial shock wore off, Tyler got pressured into going along with it, probably by Emma's manipulation and his parents asking questions about their engagement. She asked if I could help her mail them because I have nice handwriting and it would mean a lot to have family help with this special moment. I was honestly shocked she was even talking to me nicely, but I figured maybe this was her way of trying to make peace. And I felt bad about the whole credit card thing, even though she was definitely in the wrong. Plus, I was curious to see who was on this guest list. Big mistake. So I'm sitting there addressing envelopes and I recognize a bunch of names from when we planned our reception. David's extended family, his parents' friends, even some of his first wife's relatives. And I'm thinking, wait, if this engagement is fake, why are they inviting all these people? Are they really going to follow through with a fake wedding just to keep up the lie? That's when I realized Emma was basically forcing her boyfriend into this whole thing, and he was too young and confused to know how to get out of it. And all these family members were going to show up to a wedding based on a total lie. I don't know what came over me, but I started thinking about how everyone at our reception had been whispering about Emma's actions and how David's aunts were already suspicious, and how none of these people knew about the credit card theft or the photo thing or any of Emma's manipulative crap because David always covers for her. So I did something I'm not proud of, but also kind of am proud of. It's complicated. I sorted the invitations into 2 piles. One pile was Emma's friends and Tyler's family. Those I addressed normally and didn't mess with because they don't know our family issues and it's not their fault they're getting dragged into this. But the other pile was David's family and extended relatives. People who've been enabling Emma's actions or acting like I'm the problem. For those invitations, I wrote little notes. Nothing crazy or mean, just stuff about hoping they could make it and mentioning that Emma had been going through family stress with some spending issues, or saying how excited I was for the wedding and hoping it would help Emma move forward after some recent concerning action. I know it sounds vague, but I knew exactly which family members love gossip and which ones have been asking questions about Emma since our wedding. I made sure the notes were just concerned enough to make people ask follow-up questions without being obviously malicious. The best one I sent to David's first wife's sister. I mentioned how wonderful it was that Emma was finding happiness and stability after some recent concerning actions, and how much her mother would want her to make good choices. I mailed them all, without telling Emma, obviously. Within a week, she was getting phone calls from relatives asking if she needed help with her situation, or if the engagement was real because they'd heard she was having some struggles. David's aunt called her directly to ask if she was feeling okay because someone had mentioned she was acting out, and they wanted to make sure she wasn't rushing into marriage for the wrong reasons. Emma figured out pretty quickly that only certain people were getting extra information with their invitations. She came storming home and went off on David about what I'd done and how I was trying to sabotage her relationship and embarrass her in front of the family. David sat me down and told me I'd crossed a line and should have talked to him first instead of sharing family business with people who don't understand the situation. He said Emma was already fragile from everything with her mom, and I was making it worse by getting his relatives involved. Emma hasn't spoken to me since. She's been staying at Tyler's house most of the time to avoid the family issues. Tyler's parents apparently had some questions about why a 16-year-old was planning a wedding so fast, and why her family seemed concerned about her mental health. Part of me feels really guilty because I know I was being petty and vindictive, but also, these people deserved to know what they were signing up for. And maybe Emma needed to face some consequences for her actions, instead of always having David cover for her. I don't know. The house is actually peaceful now, with both of them basically ignoring me, but I also feel like I'm living with strangers who hate me. David keeps acting like I'm the one who's made everything worse by not just accepting Emma's actions. Meanwhile, I still don't know what to do about the whole suicide affair thing. Like, that's this huge betrayal sitting underneath everything else, and we still haven't really talked about it. David just keeps saying it's in the past and doesn't affect our marriage. I'm starting to think maybe I should have just left when I had the chance instead of trying to fight back against a 16-year-old. But honestly, after months of being the villain in this family, I guess I wanted them to see that Emma's actions have consequences. Was I completely out of line? I mean, yeah, probably, but also, I'm tired of being the only adult in this house who thinks Emma should face reality sometimes. Edit. 1. Since people are asking, no. I don't think the engagement is completely fake anymore. I think Emma said it impulsively to upstage our reception, and now she's trapped in the lie and has to follow through or admit she was just being manipulative.